Hey folks, round two. I felt round two is really important game for both players. When you're Ding and you won the first round with black pieces, should you really go all out and with the white pieces try to win, or should you take it one step at a time? And I feel like you need to go slow. There's no need for that. You do also have to respect your opponent, which I think they both respect each other, and this match is not over anything. We might be seeing a lot of surprises, in the next games. So it is a good choice, to play it slow, play solid, play a trending opening, very solid opening. So you basically leading the match, and try to get small advantages if you can, like little slight positions where you might be ahead and try to win if you can. For Gukesh perspective, you lost with the white pieces in round one, so psychologically you want to. Um, you were basically saying, I lost the first game in the match, and I need to come back. So a draw with black pieces in game two is pretty good. I feel like it's a good thing for him. Tomorrow's game is going to be fascinating. I'm assuming should be fun. Tomorrow's game where Yukesh would have white before the rest day. He would now have to press. Should be he try to play? I think he's gonna play e4. It wouldn't surprise me if d4 is being played. He's known for e4, but anything could happen now. So e4. The real question is what Ding does. Will we get like two French? That'll be another shocker. I think just like today, we might see the Italian, something solid, and we'll see from there. I think Gukesh would have to fight to try to get some kind of advantage, novelties if he can, and then try to win. Ding, on the other hand, would have to try to, if he could draw, that would be good before the rest day. That would be a good thing for him. That being said, let's go dive in round game two. Game two, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. Italian. Good stuff, very solid. And this is something that we've seen in the World Championships and also in the very top levels. So it's very respectful opening, and it's easy to play for white and black. So it's a good choice. And we have here bishop c5, d3, and this is all standard. Knight f6. So now this is not standard. The idea is really c3 is the most common. And I am not against knight c3. Actually, I feel like why not? You're leading the match. Why not try something different? When I saw that, I was like, we may see a novelty. Who knows? So a6 is standard. The idea is the bishop go to a7. And a4 is also very standard. You don't want to see b5 and d6, and I think we have castle. The next move is actually interesting. h6, I feel like is a good move. You don't want to deal with bishop g5, knight d5, especially the knight is sitting on c3 now. This may be potential happening. I feel like h6 is really okay and it's solid enough. Now bishop e3. I need to explain this move because some people do not understand double pawns very well. Some people have different perspectives, thinking that double pawns are always bad. That's not true. Double pawns are sometimes very effective in positions. As a matter of fact, if you were to trade on e3, I actually prefer this. The double pawns actually is a good thing for white. The reason being is because it controls the center. It also controls f4 same time, stopping all potential knight jumps, but it does control the square. It also opens up for the rook. So once you have double pawns that controlling the center, are pretty good. There are situations where double pawns are not really good and they may cost you the game. It is true, but not in every single situation. And there are openings like this, and especially the Italian, that does allow, that having the double pawns. So both players understand this idea very well, and you could actually, doesn't mean that you cannot trade. You could trade, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing for the player that has the double pawn. So bishop e6, Gukesh is saying basically, you could take mine. I don't have to take yours. So here a5, and this actually feels like it's a novelty according to the super engines. I think. I think that a5 is a really good move. And according to some weaker stockfish, I don't know if you have the ones that we see online they're pretty confused about this move, or they don't give it as highly as a supercomputer would, I believe. However, it's a novelty, but is it enough for winning? That's my question. Some ideas could be played, but the position is really like it could be holdable in certain ways. It's actually a good try, but I don't know if it's enough for a win. But I liked it. I actually like the e5, and the reason e5 is good is because it does allow white some space. However, during the game, and I was watching, and I cannot stress this enough. Every single video, it seems that I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but it's necessary to remind people about this. Pawn push are really key in chess. Can't you just win that pawn? Like, you could try to win that pawn. It's overextended now. Couldn't you just somehow? And I was like saying during the game, can you just take bishop takes? I think that's what happened next. Takes here. Can he just play like bishop b4 and we might just win the pawn at e5? And that's one of the reasons you're pushing the pawn. You could be winnable. It could give some weaknesses around some squares. However, I actually felt like this is actually a preparation here. Ding was preparing this. He was hoping this actually were to happen. And I think after bishop b4, you have knight d5. And then if knight takes e4, I believe queen d3 is actually a good move here. Should you go here? I think that's a challenging line, is you play this on queen f5, knight e6, queen g4. Now, if you castle, I actually don't think bishop takes h6 is a move. It looks like you could take the pawn. The reason I don't think it's bishop takes h6 because of f5. Black may have some activity here. I think the idea is not so much bishop takes h6. The idea has been knight h4 throughout. And I think that's actually the novelty is knight h4. Additional novelty is to continue actively go to knight f5. You have a knight at d5, a knight at f5. It's kind of interesting here, considering the bishop is also eyeing at h6. I felt like this is good. Has to be a preparation that being ahead of time. This kind of piece movement is pretty good for white. I actually feel like here, bishop takes e5, you take the second pawn, you still play knight h4. Apparently here the computer actually feels like white is active, all the pieces are moving effectively. And I think this is a preparation. It's being, they have the supercomputers that they put this in and they are able to create some ideas, and this has to be very interesting for white perspective. And that's actually what Ding was hoping for, is we play this. By the way, if you were to play knight f6 back again, I think this is terrible because of queen b3. So obviously, this is good stuff so far by Ding, assuming that bishop b4 is not the greatest move here. I actually felt like it's good choice for Gukesh not to play this kind of stuff. Don't walk into his preparation. It was a good choice not to do this. Castling is probably good enough. Even though e5 now, it looks like there's some kind of space, more space for white. Takes, as we talked, you could take double pawns here, double pawns back here. So it's okay. You could, black is controlling here, just like white is controlling. So it's okay to take. b3, and now I felt like this, during the game, I was like, why can't he just take and rook d8? And I think this is what happened, like almost, not enough time. I don't think Gukesh spent enough time in this move. I think he was able to trade kind of fast. Actually, he spent, some kind of like 10 minutes. 10 minutes and rook ad8. The next move is kind of interesting, and I have to explain it. Positionally, that feels like we are going against the norm. Meaning that this is a move that being played. And I think the reason this move is being played because if you were to trade, the rook gets here, you're kind of like allowing black to get an active rook on d8. I was actually a fan of this move. There's a reason why. I think the idea here, if you go back, even after the trade, but I think it much more clearer once the trade of queens. I think that if this is a position here, I think the idea for white has been 91 knight d3. Should you go to knight d3, you're attacking both pawns at the same time. And believe it or not, there are some ways maybe you could play knight a4, assuming he's still protecting e4 pawn, right? You may get this kind of structure later down the road, and then maybe like c5. Should you go to knight c5 and it's still attacking b7, it's going to be rough for black to hold this. It's a dream kind of situation to get to that. I mean, black has plenty of moves, but I think there was ways you could do this during the game. Is it enough for a win? It's not really clear. However, this is the reason why I was looking at rook e1, but white is looking at knight e1. So if you play rook e1, your knight cannot go to e1 and d3. So it's kind of like you kind of wasting the square for your knight. You're kind of wasting the square that the knight should be landing to too. So obviously you have to play a rook move. There's also a concern that the rook move at e1 may drop to e5. So this is the reason why this move is being played. You could argue and say, is it a good idea that your rook is an open file? You move away just to protect on c2. It is, yes, depending on the position, because the rook gets back. I mean, if we look over the game, the rook gets back to the d file anyway. So it all depends on the position at the time that allows you to move, from open file to closed file. It's okay. Depending on the position, it turns out to be that the rook was tying down to defend e5. Eventually, Ding was able to get the rook back on d1. So that's my explanation. So knight d4 is actually kind of interesting move because that drops c5, and I think this is black's opportunity. I think Ding take on e5. That's going to be a little bit of interesting. This is where Gukesh might get a little bit active with the pieces, and I felt the next move is actually pretty good. The original idea is to go to d3. However, going to d3 is not that easy. So let's explain why it's not easy. If you were to play here, I think you're getting hit by knight c2 and knight b3. That's going to be rough. You don't want to do this. So that's the reason why you have to be careful how exactly you're moving to d3. So you have to prepare it. You have to defend. I think there was ways you could play like rook b1. So let's say when you play here, knight takes. In some lines, you could take maybe knight takes c5. I guess something like I'm just giving black a move. Whose move is it again? Okay, it's black. Let's say he plays here. So let's say you take here, you could take on c5, I think. It's a possibility. Is it enough? I don't know. I mean, this is possibly something that, it's playable. I think the idea is you're attacking here is pretty good, but I'm not sure if it's enough to play like that. So rook eb1 was a possibility. It's one of the ways you could play on like that. However, Ding played king f1. I actually predicted this move. I was looking at f3 anyway. I might be wrong that f3 now makes sense, but it's still, king f1, f3, it's like still the same ideas. So rook d6 has been played, and then king f1, g6. Rook, as we discussed, the rook gets back to d1. And then I think what white is trying to do is rook d2, to get the other rook on d1, and then eventually get to play. And that brings the question, do we still have rook b1 and then maybe knight d3? It's hard to say that even this is winning or anything. It may just allow some activity and play on the game like that. It may still end up in a draw though. So still black able to hold. Rook d1, rook bring the other rook to d8, f3, and king g7, king f2. And I think we have h5. I actually felt here you need to lock this whole thing down. I mean, there's no reason for like this and knight h5 to happen, I guess. Or any kind of ideas that, avoid all of this kind of stuff and play h4. I feel like this is the next move that's going to come in. Shut it down so black doesn't have anything. And he keeps the concentration on the center, also on the sideboards. There's also like knight e4 ideas that you could create at some point. I think this is really like good stuff by white. Is it enough for win? That seems to be the key. It's not clear, but you should play on. I think maybe he could have played on a little bit. So he didn't do this. He played here, and I think 92 is like it's Ding way of drawing the game. I don't know. It's a good choice. I think if I'm white, I may just press a little bit more. Maybe Ding is not, is not convinced that this is winning. Should he play like for 10 moves or so, this may still end at a draw. I think he looked at h4. There's no way he didn't consider h4. I mean, somebody who's world champion and GM, this is like one of the first moves that pops in. I think it's reasonable that he may just need to draw that game and look ahead for next game, and it's not incredibly bad idea. Maybe try for a couple more though, like a couple more moves and maybe draw. But apparently he was happy with the draw. I don't disagree with this decision. I feel like it's reasonable score here, to be honest. 92, knight c6, these are repeating moves. I actually felt like here there was an interesting line. You could actually take here though. And if you were to play something like this, I think there was maybe a knight c3. This also feel like I think he looked at this and felt like maybe black could hold. The knight could get active, but still, it's not enough for a win. That I feel like, I felt like this is possibly here. Should you consider rook takes possibly a move that you could try? I still feel like h4 is probably much better. But what happened is obviously the repeat moves here, and the game ended in a draw. Not a bad result, to be honest. I think this decision is okay. You don't have to press, because there are different games where you would have to press to try to win, try to gain some advantage and try to win games. We're still in game 2. We're not in game 6. Usually game six is where fireworks really happens, right? So I think take it slow is a good thing. There's no need to rush anything here. Next round is going to be competitive. Next game, excuse me. Next game. I'm used to like tournament format. So next game is going to be competitive. We should be looking forward to that game because that will be really the real test, just like I mentioned. What both players going to do, and the nerve seems to be key in the matches like that. So hopefully we would enjoy it the next couple games. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. We're going to be back tomorrow for a game review. Take care.